Hello, welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I'll be sharing how I care for my cashmere. I've mentioned this a lot, but I do think it's really important that we look after everything that we have to prolong its life, regardless of how much it costs. So, as most of you know, I have quite an extensive cashmere collection from various different brands, from high street to luxury. So at this point, I'm pretty well practiced in looking after it, and because it's been quite an investment, naturally, I want it to last as long as possible. And it can, with the right steps. Now, it's worth mentioning that not all cashmere is the same. Some brands have created machine washable cashmere, and of course there are cashmere blends. But for the most part, 100% pure cashmere is hand wash only. The only exception to this is brushed cashmere, which is dry clean only. So the first thing I want to mention is that I don't actually wash my cashmere on a regular basis. In fact, I try to avoid washing it at all. And I do this by wearing a base layer under my knits to prevent any sweating or body oils transferring directly onto the knit itself. So something like a long sleeve t-shirt, or during winter, a thermal. And then instead of washing, I use a steamer to kill any bacteria and freshen up the fibres. And obviously this will also remove any creases if you've had your cashmere folded. So 2 birds, 1 stone. Now, when steaming, I hang my piece of knitwear on a coat hanger so that it's vertical, and then I hold the steamer so that it's always hovering over the surface, never actually touching the knit itself, because I don't want to damage the delicate fibres with the direct heat from the metal plate on the steamer. Once that's done, I leave the knit to air out for a little while in case any moisture is trapped in the fibres from the steam. And I tend to steam as I wear, so for example, once I've worn an item, I may steam it before putting it away, depending on where I've been and what I've been doing, and then other times I may steam an item before I get dressed. If I spill something on a piece of knitwear, then I will spot clean that area as soon as possible, just using some lukewarm water, a microfiber non-coloured cloth, and a small amount of delicate detergent. On the very rare occasion that I do need to fully wash a piece of cashmere, then controversially, I do use my washing machine. Machine washing will not be advised on about 99.9% of pure cashmere care labels. So I just want to put that out there as a word of warning. This is very much at your own risk. Now, most modern washing machines these days have a wool, silk, or specific cashmere wash program, or it could just be called hand wash, and you should be able to adjust the various settings within these programs, so temperatures and spin speed, and this is essential. If you don't have these options, then your best bet is to err on the side of caution and to physically hand wash the garment yourself in a basin as per the care label instructions. So, first of all, I use a laundry bag, although you can also use a non-coloured pillowcase as an alternative, to put my cashmere item in, just as some added protection. If I'm washing multiple pieces at a time, then I'll use 1 bag per item, or 1 larger bag for multiple smaller items like cashmere socks, which granted do get washed more regularly. I also keep similar colours together as I would do with any other normal wash to avoid any colour bleeding. I use a specific gentle detergent which is designed for delicate fibres like wool and cashmere, so absolutely no washing pods, no powder detergent, no fabric softener, none of these little scent bead booster things. These can all damage the fibres, causing more pilling and stiffness to the fabric, which, let's face it, is not what you want for your cashmere. Now, I do live in a hard water area, so I use a small amount of white vinegar in all of my washes, including cashmere, as this acts as a natural softener and helps to remove any odours. And this is completely safe to use with your cashmere. I use a special delicate wool wash program which I found suitable for both wool and cashmere, and I changed the spinning temperature to the lowest option available. Now I've got to know all of my cashmere pieces, so for example my Uniqlo cashmere, I may wash that on a 20-degree temperature, whereas my thicker and chunkier cashmere pieces I'll wash on cold with absolutely no heat at all. And this is one important piece of information to remember. Heat causes shrinkage. Heat is essentially cashmere's arch nemesis, so you want to avoid heat. When it comes to spin speed, I put this on the lowest possible option of 200 or 400. My own personal guideline is that the thicker the piece of knitwear, the lower the spin speed. If you don't want to risk a spin at all, then you should opt for no spin, but that will require hand draining the water out of your piece or pieces of knitwear when the cycle is done. Now these gentle washing machine cycles tend to be very short. You don't want to leave your cashmere damp or fully soaked in water if you've opted for a no spin. So as soon as the cycle is finished, I take them out straight away. Drying cashmere is not a quick affair. It requires patience, and trust me, it's worth it in order to keep your pieces in tip-top condition. Tumble dryers are an absolute no-go because remember, no heat. But even on a cycle without heat, they can damage the fibres, so you're going to want to allow your cashmere to air dry. I use a clothes airer and lay a clean, non-coloured towel on the top, making sure the airer is flat and not sat at an angle. You will need to gently reshape your cashmere when it comes out of the wash, regardless of if you've used your machine or if you physically hand wash the garment. Water also causes shrinkage, and damp or wet cashmere is the most vulnerable. Now, whilst there are some hacks online to unshrink cashmere, once it's shrunk, there really is no getting it back to its original state. It will never be the same again, so it's so important to take your time with the drying process. I lay my reshaped pieces flat on top of the towels and then leave to gradually air dry. Now, there are a few more don'ts when it comes to air drying your cashmere. Don't leave it too close to a direct heat source, so don't drape over a radiator. You're not supposed to do that anyway, but don't use any of those little radiator hanging things. Don't even place your airer next to a radiator. Don't leave them in a room with a fire going or near a window in direct sunlight. And don't hang them up. They need to be flat so that they don't stretch and misshape. If you need to speed up the drying process, then you can pop your cashmere piece in between two towels, kind of like a cashmere sandwich, and roll it up, pressing down very gently so that the towels can absorb some of the moisture. But aside from that, don't take any shortcuts to speed up the drying time. Just be patient. I usually flip my cashmere pieces over after about a day so that they can dry evenly, and then it's just a waiting game. But always ensure that your garments are fully dry before storing away, because moisture can attract pests like moths, which I will get onto very shortly, and cause bacteria, which will inevitably result in that musty mildew smell. Okay, so that's washing done. I'm now going to move on to storage and general upkeep. Cashmere is a delicate fibre. It will pill, or as I like to call it, bubble. There are a range of different factors that affect pilling, from quality, manufacturing process, length of fibres, the density of the knit, how you've cared for and laundered the garment, and of course the main culprit, friction. And so we will see more pilling in certain areas, like under the arms. I have a two-step debobbling process that I use for all of my cashmere knitwear, and I try to keep on top of this as I wear each item. So if I see some bubbles starting to form after I've worn a piece, then I'll make sure that I remove those as soon as possible. But it has to be said that, like steaming, I find debobbling quite therapeutic, and I have been known to spend a few very enjoyable hours doing a mass debobbling of of my knitwear. So I use two tools, a cashmere comb and an electric fabric shaver that I call a debobbler. I tend to use my cashmere comb first, as I find that the most effective way of removing bubbles, especially on longer pile cashmere pieces, which tend to be the more luxury and higher price pointed cashmere. Lying my cashmere on a flat surface, that's very important. I make sure to gently keep the fabric pulled taut and then use sweeping motions in one direction with the cashmere comb at roughly a 90-degree angle. Don't press too hard, it really doesn't take much pressure at all to remove any bubbles. You can also use a cashmere comb to fluff up the texture of your cashmere piece, especially if it's a longer pile, which just helps to make it look nice and fresh. Then there's the electric debobbler. Mine is from Steamery and it's rechargeable, so it's fully portable and no batteries are required. But to be honest, I know many people have had excellent experiences with some of the more affordable options out there, so it doesn't have to be a Steamery. Now, you do need to be careful with an electric debobbler, and the main thing to remember and to stick to is to lay your garment on a flat surface. Don't hold it in your hands unless you're very well practiced like me, and even then there's still a risk that it could snag in the device and create a hole. I use circular motions, again applying a light pressure and making sure that I've got the fabric pulled taut to avoid it wrinkling and then getting snagged. An electric debobbler is better for low pile cashmere. A prime example of that would be Uniqlo's basic cashmere pieces, as well as any wool, or if you just want to tidy up a slightly longer pile cashmere piece after using a cashmere comb. Now, debobbling your cashmere pieces isn't just for the aesthetics of making your pieces look nice and fresh and feel soft. It also contributes to the longevity of your garments, because prolonged pilling puts stress on the fibres, which, as I've mentioned many times, are very delicate, and this can cause them to break down over time. And this is why it's so important to keep on top of your bubbles. Okay, storage. For those of you who have seen any of my wardrobe switchover videos over the years, you'll have seen how I store my knitwear, and that's inside these drawers that I have in my wardrobe. I fold my knitwear so that they slot into these drawers vertically, and I do this so that I can easily see what I have when I open a drawer versus folding them in a stacked format. My thicker and chunkier cashmere is less folded and more rolled just because it's so thick and that's how it forms, but this actually reduces creasing, which is another bonus. Now, I have a walk-in wardrobe room, so I use pest-repelling essential oils like lavender, peppermint and cedar oil on a lava rock diffuser so that scent fills the air and deters any moths from wanting to live in this space. I also use lavender cut from our garden, and once dry I will pop this inside little canvas bags and place those in certain areas inside my wardrobe, including inside the drawers where my cashmere is stored. I do also have some cedarwood balls, most of which came with the various pieces of cashmere that I've bought over the years, and these are again in little canvas bags and popped inside the drawers of my knitwear. You do need to sand any cedarwood products every now and then in order to refresh the fragrance that actually deters the moths. But you can also use cedarwood oil. It's a bit of a cheat. You can drop this onto little fragrance cards or a little mini pillow and pop that inside any drawers. It's just a little bit easier and more time friendly in comparison to sanding cedarwood. Now, it is important to remember that cedarwood should not directly touch your garments, and the same goes for oil, because the oil can transfer onto your cashmere and cause staining, and that's going to be really difficult to try and remove. So always use a little bag and keep a distance between the cedar wood or any oils that you're using and your garments. And there we go, guys. I hope that's been helpful for those of you who have been asking or wondering about how I care for my cashmere. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.